Warning: this podcast features adult subject matter, adult language, and things not meant for children to hear. Viewer discretion is advised. You've been warned. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the I'm No Joe podcast, the show where every armchair quarterback can feel like an Eddie Bravo. Today, we've got a little bit of a different setup for you today. We don't have the usual round table going on, but we've got everybody here in spirit. TJ Golf T Vapes was unable to make it. He is actually with his child right now, and he's the only one at home. Mama's out shopping, so priorities are priorities. Can't be mad at that. But he was kind enough to send along his picks for the fight this evening, so we will be able to throw his feedback in here. But along with me today, we've got a face that some of you may or may not know. We have got my brother from another mother, the fighting wonder, RJ Vapes himself. RJ, thank you very much for coming along today, brother.
No problem, man.
So we've got a fairly short window here. As is per usual, we are already behind the 8 ball. As far as this show goes, we are actually recording during the kickoff of the early prelims, so we're going to try not to take up too much time here. But before we get into the UFC shenanigans, there are just a couple things that I do want to talk about real quick and then get your feedback on as well. The first one being the Wilder versus Fury, the boxing match of the fucking century. Now, I realize that they called it a majority draw. I watched that fight, and I don't see any way in hell how that was not 100% a Fury victory. Granted, Wilder got the 2 knockdowns, and the last one was the knockdown of the fucking century. He looked dead, and then he did the Undertaker fucking rise from the grave. And he came back and still put it on fucking Wilder. I do love that they are going to do a rematch, but I also think it's kind of hilarious that all of a sudden, once this fight came to be and was legitimately every bit of the hype that people expected, now all of a sudden Anthony Joshua is trying to pretend that he's been trying to get in there the whole time and that he deserves his shot in the middle. They shouldn't go for a rematch. Fucking hilarious. But I absolutely 100% had that fight going to Fury. I don't get how they called a draw. How did you see that one coming down, brother?
Oh shit. Man, that was Fury all day. I mean, you gotta give credit where credit's due. I mean, both of them were slugging it out the entire freaking time, like nobody's business. But I mean, that was Fury all day. Like you can't. And the whole, I want my shot. Go get your shot. You'll get your shot at the fight. But I mean, when you have some fuck up like that, like there has to be a rematch. There has to be a rematch. There has to. And when there's just that level of just that was the stupidest call. Yeah, can't say a stupid call, but it was just kind of questionable calls on a decision. You have to run it back. You have to. There's no other way around it. You have to run that back.
I agree completely. So I am stoked that they are talking about potentially doing it over in the UK this time, because as Tyson Fury always does, he comes to his challengers. So he came to America to fight Wilder. But running that back, I think the atmosphere of, like, if they do that in the O2 Arena in London, maybe somewhere where they can pack in a good, 30,000 fucking people that are going to go ape shit, and then even more ape shit because it's Fury fighting at home. I think we might see a more dominant performance in the rematch, and that's really kind of just going to push Joshua right out of the fucking picture completely, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Okay, so jumping right along here, the next thing I want to talk about just real quick, just because it's coming up in a couple of days and is getting zero press, and in my opinion, for good fucking reason. The New Year's Eve fight of Floyd Mayweather versus Tenshin Nasukawa.
Ooh, I have not heard about this yet.
So it is an exhibition match, 3 3-minute rounds at 147 pounds. There are no judges. It has no impact on either of their record, Floyd's boxing record or Tenshin's MMA record. It is technically a full contact contest, but boxing only. There are no kicks or takedowns allowed. And they're using 8-ounce Ryzen MMA gloves, not boxing gloves.
Ooh. Ooh.
This feels to me like Floyd is really, really, really testing the waters to try and come back at Conor in an octagon.
Yeah.
Now, there's lots and lots of talk about, you know, Khabib wants to challenge Floyd now because he thinks that he can do better than Conor did. And Floyd has zero interest in that fight. He said it publicly. He has zero interest in that fight for good fucking reason. Khabib has nothing to fucking hold against Conor as far as that boxing discipline goes. But if Floyd fares well, and I don't see it going that way, but if he can fare well against Tenshin, who I've watched some fucking tape on, the kid is fucking good.
He's savage.
But if Floyd can at least hold his own fairly well in this 3-round exhibition match against Tenshin, that just puts that much more fuel and that much more hype behind Conor versus Floyd 2 in an octagon. Like Conor always said, you want to do it again, come into my world this time. Even if they go no kicks, no takedowns, Floyd versus Conor in an octagon with MMA gloves is a completely different fucking fight than Conor going to boxing.
That's a whole other world.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing than Conor putting on the fucking 12.5-ounce or 16-ounce gloves, whatever the fuck they used, and getting in a fucking square with a boxing referee who was clearly fucking working for Floyd.
That's a whole other world right there.
Yeah, I think if this works out right, this is the precursor to get Floyd and Conor 2 officially to happen in an octagon, and that at least has me a little bit excited. I don't think Floyd's going to really do anything spectacular. I don't think he's going to go out of his way or put himself in real danger here, but I did see already where Tenshin had said on fucking, I believe it was on Twitter, that he understands the rules in this being an exhibition and it's boxing only, but in the back of his mind, he's always going to have the urge to kick Floyd Mayweather. Because everyone who knows anything about MMA knows, as good as Floyd's hands are, one fucking low leg kick from anyone in the MMA world, and he's going to crumple like a sack of potatoes. So, like, it's good news and it's bad news. Like, they're doing it on New Year's Eve, which is also when the PFL is doing their $6 million tournament, which also isn't getting a lot of hype because there just isn't a lot of promo being done for it. So it's like, not only is it really bad timing, but they haven't done shit for publicity for it, and it's kind of getting downplayed. So I think it's going to be one of those things that this is either going to prove once and for all that Floyd has no business stepping into an octagon and it's going to end the conversation, or if it swings the other way with the pendulum, this is going to absolutely pave the fucking groundwork for Floyd versus Conor 2 in Conor's world.
I mean, I'll say it. I'll say it in my background. I started off as a boxer. One thing that boxing has over the world of mixed martial arts is a boxer's stamina is unreal compared to an MMA fighter. That's one thing that I could say from experience myself, as that's going to be a little bit iffy, a little bit iffy on on just the overall stamina that Floyd brings in to this match. Regardless of the gloves, I mean, a boxer stamina is next to none. That is, I mean, that's gonna be interesting. I'm gonna have to watch that.
Well,
and you have to watch that. I didn't hear about that.
You're gonna have to take that in both grains of salt sense as well, though, because on one hand, I agree with you completely. A boxer's stamina is ridiculous because most boxers train for 13 rounds so they can fight a full 12. So when you're training for 13 3-minute rounds, you're training for essentially 40 minutes of fighting, which is longer than any MMA fight will ever run, at least in the UFC. But on the other hand, you're also training for 40 minutes of just boxing.
Yeah.
versus MMA, where you're literally
yeah.
engaging your whole body, way more core muscle endurance, plus the factor of takedowns, kicks, and then just the wild variety of MMA striking as opposed to,
Yeah.
strict traditional boxing as well. So I think it's going to be,
Ooh.
it's one of those, man. Like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
but
That's going to be interesting to see.
Floyd aside, let's jump right into the meat and potatoes of what we've got going on this evening. UFC 232. So now before we can get into talking about this, there's no fucking way around it. We have to discuss the events that have happened this week that have made this the most controversial card of 2018, possibly one of the most controversial cards in UFC recent history, at least. So for the uneducated, last July, John Jones tested positive for oral turinabol metabolites in his system. It was one positive test of a single picogram in a series of 9 confirmed negative tests. This led to his suspension, his stripping of the 205 belt, and then subsequently 15 months of arbitration before they finally agreed that this is such a minute amount that no one could possibly have intentionally ingested this much. Aside from that, the amount that was found could not possibly have any performance enhancement ability, period. Now, jump ahead to December 9th, 2018. John Jones, again, having taken, I believe they said 9 USADA drug tests in the last 6 months, all coming up 100% negative for any substance, on December 9th, had one test come up with the same picogram level of the same metabolite for oral turinabol that he originally tested positive for in last July. The UFC immediately turned around, had USADA, WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, the IOC, the Olympic Committee, and 4 other independent USADA accredited labs all run tests on the December 9th sample again and verified the amount is the same. This is what they're referring to as a pulse scenario, where a metabolite that bonds to your system and will remain in your system for longer periods than it would have been normally just there if you were taking it. It would still resound on another test. They're calling this a pulse effect, where he hasn't re-ingested, but the same metabolite that is stuck to his system reappeared in one test for 1 picogram, the same initial amount of the same metabolite. Being is that this happened right before Christmas, the Nevada State Athletic Commission had 4 of its commissioners out of state that wouldn't be able to return in time to review the results of this and to sanction John Jones, because the fighters don't get licensed until the week before the fight. Nevada's Athletic State Commission had 4 of its commissioners out of state who wouldn't be able to return, and so were not able to sanction John Jones for the fight in Las Vegas. In light of that, the California State Athletic Commission had all of its members present, took all of the information from USADA, WADA, the IOC, and the independent doctors who are accredited, took all of that information into consideration, gathered their committee, said they agree 100% with the results. There is no new ingestion. This is not a performance-enhancing supplement, or a benefit, rather. This is the pulse effect of that long-term metabolite still being in the system. They licensed the fight, and the card this week has subsequently been moved from Las Vegas, where it was originally scheduled, to Los Angeles because of the California State Athletic Commission's agreement to sanction this fight based on the evidence. So aside from anything else that happens, regardless of the outcome of any of the fights tonight, the one thing that has been on the front burner for every organization for the last couple days has simply been the regurgitating of the John Jones tested positive theory. I am not an apologist. I am a John Jones fan, but I also am a realist, and he has fucked up more often than he hasn't. That being said, facts are facts. There are multiple scientists here who have verified, quantified, and peer-reviewed the data, this is not a John Jones cheating incident, despite what the casuals are going to scream and what Alexander Gustafsson has been saying repeatedly in all of the press opportunities he has had this week. So, that out of the way, let's talk about some actual fights on this card. So the first one that I want to talk about, the only thing that I care about really, and I know that's kind of a dick move with this being the last UFC event of the year, but the only fight that I am particularly interested in myself on the early prelim card is Bevan Lewis versus Uriah Hall. Now, how this fight ended up on the early prelim card, I do not understand.
Yeah.
Put that aside. Not to be that guy, but I don't have dick for knowledge about any of Bevan Lewis's history. We all know Uriah Hall, and he's one of the most dangerous men on the planet. So all I can think in this situation is that they're giving Uriah Hall that gatekeeper status. They're going to let him fight to catch some money off of a card that's going to have a lot of eyes on it against what appears to be a new up-and-comer, and either give him a chance to shine and beat the shit out of this guy, or start to try and take that stagger step back down the rankings because the new kids are starting to come in and beat him up. So I, as a fan, I have to go with Uriah Hall on this. So how are you thinking this one's coming down?
Man, like you said, like they got him against somebody that doesn't have a big track record, like really known, like he's fought some pound for pound great fighters. So again, I'm with you, Uriah Hall all day.
Nice. Now, not to be that guy, because in the fight world there are no absolutes. Anything can happen. I'm not saying Bevan Lewis has no chance. I'm just saying my chips go in the Uriah Hall side here on this one. So we'll move right along. There are 3 fights that I want to discuss on the prelim card for this evening. First and foremost, the one that almost no one has talked about because of the Jones incident, because of Amanda Nunes versus Cyborg on this card, because of some of the other fights, this one has gone almost completely unmentioned. BJ Penn is coming out of retirement to fight Ryan Hall at 155.
I was ecstatic.
I both squealed like a 13-year-old girl at a Bieber concert and then went, oh, at the same time when I heard about this. Because, one, BJ should not come out of retirement, in my opinion. That man has built himself a legacy that no other fighter in the UFC has been able to come close to touching. Also, Ryan Hall is one of the BJJ prodigies, specifically in the leg lock and the ankle lock world, but he is a BJJ prodigy. And BJ is beyond out of his prime. He is up there in both mileage and years and battle damage received. And
Yeah.
he is gone. He's one of the only fighters ever to gone all the way up to heavyweight and fought meticulously and very well at heavyweight and come all the way back down. And this fight is at 155. BJ is beyond, at least in my opinion, beyond too old to be trying to cut his body down that far to fight a guy this strong after as much time off as he has. I love BJ Penn. He is a fucking legend. He is one of the reasons I am in love with MMA as much as I am, but I cannot in my heart of hearts see Ryan Hall losing this match to him. I have to go with the Ryan Hall against the legend on this one. Where you stand, brother?
Yeah, man. I mean, a lot of the legends have been trying to come back. You know, the years back they had Randy Couture come back in the UFC for a few fights. He did good on one, but then struggled the rest. I'd love to say BJ Penn, but I just can't. I just can't do it. I mean, the guy got me to cross over from being a boxer to an MMA fighter because of BJ Penn. I saw him fight. I'm like, how'd you do that?
The Flying Hawaiian, man. He fucking made
can't
history. And that's actually a real good point about the legends coming back and trying to make second hits, because we'll talk about that again here in just a second. And almost to that point, but not quite to the same extent, the next fight that I want to talk about on the prelims, Kat Zingano versus Megan Anderson. Now, not only is this a great fucking fight because Kat Zingano is on a goddamn tear making her way back through the fucking UFC, which just warms the cockles of my fucking black little heart. But Megan Anderson is no fucking slouch at that. But what makes this fight the most interesting, at least in my opinion here, they're fighting at 145. These are both 135 girls, and they're both fighting at 145, which means both of them, at least in some sense, are preparing to either go after Amanda if she takes the belt from Cyborg tonight, or to go after Cyborg if she keeps that fucking belt tonight. Now, granted, based on what we've seen recently from both of these ladies, who I love both of, I personally still don't see either one of them being able to take Cyborg. Amanda at 145, we don't quite know yet because she's primarily stayed in the 135 as far as the UFC goes. But these ladies both, at least on paper from what I'm seeing here, look to be setting themselves up for a potential shot at whoever holds that fucking 145 belt starting in 2019. Now, being a fan of both of these ladies, I've watched every fight that both of them have been in for a hot fucking minute now, and I do see such great potential in both of them. Kat making her comeback and Megan making her way up to make a name for herself. But this fight particularly tonight, I have got my chips in Camp Zingano. How you feel, brother?
Oh man, I'd like to say Nunes, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, man. That's going to be Nunes has been an absolute rampage in this female field for the last little bit of time now.
Megan Anderson's no slouch, but I think
Kat
Zingano on the tear that she's on right now on her comeback tour, I think Kat takes it over Megan tonight.
Yeah.
At least at 145. Now, granted, if they were doing this at 135, it might be the other way around. But I think at 145 with Kat carrying her power, I think Kat takes this tonight.
Yeah.
So, sliding right along, like you were making a point about just a minute ago, legends who should not have come back or who should not be trying to come back. The last fight on the prelim card that I want to talk about.
Oh, man.
Andre the Pitbull Arlovski versus Walt Harris. Now, anybody who's been a fan for any decent amount of time knows the Pitbull has been one of the baddest motherfuckers in not only UFC, but in the world of MMA in several organizations for years now. But he's another one that's just been around and he's been in the big wars for so fucking long. His prime is far behind him. And Walt Harris is a fucking machine. That dude is cut and he is fucking talented. Now, the thing that really throws me off the most about this fight is they're fighting at heavyweight. At heavyweight, for a non-title fight, you can go up to 266. Arlovski came in at 240, looking pretty lean, but Walt came in at 250, looking chiseled like he's in a fucking Mr. Olympia competition. I love the Pitbull. He has my single most favorite mouth guard in fucking history. Man. That fucking fanged mouth guard that
that mouth guard.
Oh my God, dude. It is literally my favorite fucking mouth guard I have ever seen in any fucking fighting ever.
I have that mouth guard.
See, I'm telling you. But that being said, coming in 10 pounds lighter than a dude who's as big as Walt is. At this point in his fucking waning, legendary, but waning point of his fucking career, I just can't see Arlovski getting around Walt Harris. Asterisk next to that. Arlovski is still one of those dudes that at any point in a fucking fight, if he catches you with that one shot, no matter who the fuck you are,
it's over.
You can go to fucking sleep.
It's over.
But I don't think he lands that one shot on Walt Harris. I think Walt Harris is going to manhandle him. He's going to fucking put him down. And I think it's going to be ground and pound, third round stoppage, in my opinion. Where do you sit on this one?
I don't know, man. I'm a big Arlovski fan. I've been using his mouthpiece for years. But I mean, what people don't talk about is he is still doing his own thing, not in the UFC. I can't remember what the league it is. It's for some European league, but he still trains and fights over there from time to time. Yeah. That's what people aren't bringing up, aren't talking about. He's not fighting huge pros at the UFC. But he's still fighting people that could be potential for the UFC in the upcoming year.
Very true, and that's valid as well.
Yeah, he's still fighting it out over there. But I want to say, dude, with that being said, a lot of people are sleeping on him. Like, he has no reason to come back. I want to say Arlovski on that.
You're going for the shocker, huh?
Say. Yeah, I think a lot of people are sleeping on him.
Nice.
Like, I mean, a lot of people are sleeping on him.
I definitely agree, and I completely understand your reasoning for that. I do have to say I apologize in advance. I missed over one here. As far as the BJ Ryan Hall goes, we did get some feedback from that on TJ Golf T-Vapes. He very much, like we stated here, he loves BJ, and he absolutely wants to say that he thinks BJ is going to win, but, and I quote, I know better. So at least the three of us are in unanimous agreement here. We all fucking love and respect the shit out of BJ Penn, but we just can't put our fucking chips down on him in this fight. So, that being said, we will jump into the hunk of fat that is the main card for 232 this evening. So the first fight we're going to talk about here, Chad Money Mendes versus the up-and-comer Alexander Volkanovski. Now, they're fighting at 145. Somehow, in the crazy mixed-up scheduling ranking system that they are running right now, Chad Mendes is ranked number 5 on the rise. Volkanovski is only ranked number 10, but also on the rise. The irony to me about this match is that for the entire Fight Week promotion that they have been doing, Chad Mendes has been saying that a win over Volkanovski should put him in line for the next title shot at 145. I'm a big fan of Chad's. I have been for a long time. I understand why he is upset about the loss against McGregor with the short-term camp and not being prepared for anything the way that came out. That being said, McGregor worked him like a fucking part-time job.
Yeah.
That aside, I don't see, regardless of what I think about if he's going to win or lose, I don't understand how a number 5 ranked guy in his head can justify beating a number 10 ranked guy, and that's somehow putting him up to the number 1 contender status, especially after we just saw T-City versus Holloway at 145 being one of the most amazing featherweight fights in the fucking history of MMA as far as I'm concerned. Ortega took all the damage a person possibly could and was willing to die in that fucking ring, and Max put on an absolute clinic against him. That being said, I think that rematch is the only fight to make at 145 if Max stays at 145. Now, if Max decides that he's going to go up to 155 and start playing with the lightweight boys, then I think that Ortega versus Mendes, if he wins tonight, could be a potential next title match. But that's a whole separate can of worms. Aside from all of that speculation and nonsense, tonight is a very serious challenge for Chad Mendes. Granted, he's looking good. His training videos look good. His last fight, he came out and looked good. But Volkanovski is a fucking steamroller. This dude has got so much fucking power and so much potential. I think, in my opinion, he's got Chad's number. I think he takes it tonight. I think he puts Mendes to sleep and ends this fucking hype train that Chad has been building himself. Where do you sit on this one?
Mendes is coming in too cocky. Whenever you come into a fight too cocky, you make that one mistake and you fuck up. Make that one mistake and you're done.
I agree, and especially in this situation where he's up against a fairly young kid who doesn't really have a whole lot of tape to be watched on him. So not only are you coming in cocky, you're coming in cocky against a guy you really don't have a lot of fucking material of his to train against. So now I'm not saying Chad Mendes is a fucking slouch and he doesn't do his homework. Far from it. If you've seen any Mendes fight where he's got a camp behind him, the man studies his opponent and will put a pretty efficient game plan together for the most part. But in this situation, I completely agree. I feel like he is coming in way too cocky, way too fucking hot against a guy who it just doesn't seem like he's done enough homework on. I think Mendes gets his bell rung tonight.
Yeah.
So with that silliness out of the way, that moves us to the next fight on the card. The second Swede / Albanian in the house representing this evening, Ilir Latifi versus Corey Anderson. Now, Ilir Latifi is a badass in the gym. He is obviously right there with his brother, Alexander Gustafsson. They train the fuck out of everything that they can. The training videos that you see of those two, they push each other so fucking hard. They definitely get in there. They put the hours in. That being said, as far as the in-ring performance in the UFC, Ilir Latifi just has not really been there and been as exciting as the hype around him really kind of set him up to be. Now, the problem is neither has Corey Anderson. So a number 5 versus number 10 fight, just like Mendes versus Volkanovski.
Oh, yeah.
But I can understand Mendes versus Volkanovski. What I don't get is how Latifi versus Anderson made it to the main card when we have Uriah Hall fighting on the fucking early prelims.
Yeah.
Realistically, this fight doesn't have any weight in the division. It doesn't shake up the standings. It doesn't make a big wave. In my opinion, the Uriah Hall fight should be on the main card here, and this Latifi Anderson fight should have been on the prelims or even on the Uriah Hall early prelim spot. So as much as I don't want to make a pick in this fight either way, I think Corey Anderson is going to take it here. Now, I understand, the Swedish companionship with Latifi and Gustafsson, and I know that that's going to be a little bit of fuel for the fire here, but in my opinion, Corey Anderson is definitely coming in the underdog here, and I think he's going to use that to his advantage. I think Corey Anderson takes it over Latifi tonight. Where do you see this one going?
Oh man, I haven't heard much about Latifi. So I really can't put his name up. But you said something talking about it. Is Latifi and Gustafsson, do they fight under the same camp? Because you said that they heard that okay, that's why they're putting so much hype about it. They're not putting the hype behind the fighter, they're putting the hype behind the team.
It's the Team Sweden, because
Latifi
is an Albanian that trains in Sweden with Gustafsson. So he's like Team Sweden, even though he's Albanian.
So hype.
Yeah, so it's the
so
Swede
hype.
team coming in with the group and the momentum behind them to try and help beef each other up and shit. And I get that. I really do.
So hype.
Yeah, I really do. I understand that hype, and I understand that motivation coming in with your fucking boy fighting on the same fucking card that you've been training with.
Yeah.
I just don't see Latifi being able to take this against Anderson.
Yeah, I haven't heard much of him doing like really big things in the UFC. Like I saw him announcing all the fights and for the prelims, the main cards, and all that sort of stuff, and I was like, who is this kid? Like, who is this?
Yep.
Like I don't think I've ever heard of him before. Is he somebody they brought in from another company?
He's not bad. And I know the casuals that are watching this, if they make it this far, are going to be fucking screaming and pulling their hair out at me, because in Europe, where Gustafsson is God, Latifi is right there with him. So he's got recognition in other parts of the world, in other organizations. But as far as the UFC goes, he's got a couple of real highlight reel, fights, but it's more like chunks of his fight are highlight reel worthy. Like, he's not one of those guys that is going to come out and just put on a fucking performance from the first bell to the last or till the knockout. He's one of those guys that he comes out and it's like, which Latifi are we going to see today? Is he going to come out and is he going to be aggressive and smart and just outwork the guy, or is he going to come out and be lazy and get fucking thrown around? And with a guy like that, at least I can't really put my chips in his fucking camp, because while he does have some good ability and he does have potential and he's got that power, he's just a real inconsistent fighter, in my opinion. So, that being said, the next two pre-main, co-main, assistant co-main, maybe, the middle fight on the card this evening. This is another fight that never really made sense to me, but a lot of the fights the UFC puts together don't. This one in particular just seemed a bit odd. Carlos Condit returning to fight Michael Chiesa. Condit is one of those guys that, yes, he's been around, yes, he's got some mileage, but he, for whatever reason, however the fuck his superpowers seem to work, can never be counted out, because even when you catch him, it's almost impossible to completely finish him. The dude comes back from almost everything and has had some of the most severe injuries in the UFC and still come back from that shit. Chiesa, on the other hand, is the type of dude to sue you for emotional support and distress. And he's known not only for mediocre fighting, but at least in my opinion, for being the guy to scream like a fucking gremlin and get counted as a verbal submission from a choke. I'm not saying Chiesa has no skills, but dude, Carlos fucking Condit is a monster, no matter how long he has to prepare for that fight. And the ironic thing to me is that during the press circuit that they do during fight week, Michael Chiesa made a point to talk to a couple of different journalists about how he's got a picture of himself when he first started fighting wearing an original Carlos the Natural Born Killer Condit t-shirt, and now he's fighting Carlos Condit. So he's been a fan and he respects him, but then he immediately goes to talking shit about him. It's like, come on, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Condit is a fucking badass that has earned anything he fucking wants to do at this point. And Chiesa is still a meh, up-and-coming, like, flake. I am 100% confident that Carlos Condit is going to beat his ass all fucking day. Take my money.
I mean, like, there's not a lot of fighters that you can say it about, but Condit, dude, he could be raw backpedaling and still be putting a hurting on you.
Condit's one of those dudes until he is 100% asleep out cold. He has the potential to get up from anything you fucking do to him.
He might be backpedaling, but he's still throwing bombs.
Okay, so that brings us to the co-main event. The arguably one of the biggest female MMA fights of the year and one of the most important ones, at least in UFC history, as far as this goes. Amanda Nunes, the 135-pound women's champion, is going up to 145 to fight the featherweight women's champion, Cyborg, for the 145 belt in an attempt to be the UFC's first female champ. There's so much that can be said about this match. I don't know that it, A, gets the recognition that it deserves because of the John Jones overshadowing, but B, gets the recognition that it deserves because it's Amanda Nunes holding her 135 belt and going up to 145 to challenge Cyborg for that belt. But during all the press conference and the circuit press that they have done this week, Cyborg, I don't know if it's just the mistranslation or the miscommunications because of the language barrier, but she seems to be thinking and talking about this fight like if she wins, Amanda isn't the 135-pound champion anymore as well. That almost seems, at least in some part to me, like Cyborg is not only looking past this fight already, but she doesn't appreciate or understand the actual gravity or the magnitude of the outcome of this fight. Because while, yes, she is technically the 145-pound women's champion, anyone who's been watching since the inception of the 145 women's division knows that there isn't a 145-pound women's division. There is Cyborg, and then there are all these cannon fodder, no name, not worth title shot 145-pound women the UFC has been bringing in and feeding to her, with the exception of Holly Holm going up to try and challenge for 145. But I thought that was a bad idea from the fucking get-go because Holly can't even do shit at 135. She, in my opinion, got fucking lucky to fight Ronda when she did, because ever since that fight, she has been exposed as a motherfucker. Valentina beat the brakes off of Holly Holm, and I giggled the whole fucking fight. So I don't think that really counts as a 145-pound challenger. This, on the other hand, might just be that, because Amanda Nunes, as dominant as she's been in 135, and I'm not particularly a fan of hers, but I have to admit that she has been absolutely fucking dominant at 135. You can see in her fights, she's much bigger than the vast majority of the girls they've put her up against in 135 as well. So this could be the chance for us to see Amanda Nunes keeping those extra 10 pounds on, because she weighed in at 144 on the fucking championship level. So this could be our chance to see Amanda keeping that power that DC always brags about that he holds when he goes up to a weight class, and really giving Cyborg a legitimate 145-pound challenge. That being said, I still think that Cyborg is too fucking big for Amanda to handle, because if you followed Cyborg's career, at least since she's come towards the end of the Invicta, the inception into the UFC, and in her rise to 145, she has a hard time cutting weight, and she cuts a lot of weight. Now, I can't say because I don't know her personally and I've never seen her step on a fucking scale, but the rumor coming from people that know her say that she walks around at almost 200 fucking pounds when she's out of camp.
Good fucking God.
Yeah, when she's out of camp and just fucking off, she's rumored to be between 190 and 200 fucking pounds walking around. And that has historically been the main reason she never got to fight Ronda through all the shit talk, because Ronda wouldn't go up to 145. Ronda told her, you want to fight me, you come to 135 where I fucking fight and we'll fight. And Cyborg flat out said, I can't make 135. And the last time she tried to make 145 even, she almost got hospitalized because her kidneys shut down. That was when they made an entire documentary about how her team was feeding her birth control pills to try and force her body to shock the weight off, and that she was laying in the tub crying because she didn't want to lose any more weight. It was doing so draining on her. So I don't think the cut to 45 is, I think that's about the edge of where she can go. And I think it's really hard. If you saw her at the weigh-ins yesterday, she looks like a skeleton at 145. So she, even at the class that they're fighting in, is still almost the same amount bigger than Amanda is the girls that she fights at 135. So I get the intentions. I get the motivation. I understand wanting to make history and be the first ladies champ. But at the same time, at least on paper, in my opinion, this is not going to be the matchup that Amanda thinks it's going to be. And I'm not saying she doesn't stand a chance. What I'm saying is she's just not big enough to hold a chance. I think Cyborg has her essentially everywhere with the exception of wrestling. Cyborg and her both are Brazilian jiu-jitsu masters. They both have great striking. They both have great stamina. The only area that I can see that Amanda has a chance of taking this away from Cyborg is if she puts wrestling into effect. She has to hold her. She has to stay close range. She has to take her down, and she has to do serious ground and pound, and she can't let herself get sloppy about it. But I don't think she can do it. I don't think she's going to be able to put that much of a game plan in. I think Cyborg and her team trained way too much because they know that that's how it's going to go. And I know that Cyborg has been training with Valentina, who is the only person who has arguably put serious hurt on Amanda Nunes, and it's done twice now. Granted, both of those judgments went to Amanda, but if you watch both of those fights, those are easily contestable decisions in both situations. That being said, that edge of knowing firsthand exactly how Amanda fights and how to counter that, I think is going to play a huge factor, as well as the size, in my opinion, in Chris Cyborg keeping her 145-pound belt tonight. What do you think about this one?
I mean, first I'm gonna say Cyborg. I'm gonna say Cyborg, but there's one thing that a lot of people talk about. That's the weight cut, the weight cut, the weight cut, the weight cut. Like walking around, I am like outside of camp. I am at 125. That's my walking weight outside of camp. Whenever I get ready to a fight, I have to gain 10, 15 pounds.
So you like reverse weight cut?
Weight. Yeah, to fight at bantamweight. Putting that weight on and fighting with that weight that you're not used to walking around with, that is the hardest thing to do. Regardless if it's 10 pounds or 15 pounds, getting up into a 144 weight, that is the hardest thing to do, and to sit there and fight with that, because you're not used to that. Regardless of how long your training is, whether it's for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, or you get months notice that hey, you have to make this weight class, that is one of the hardest things to do. I'll start on my Instagram. I'm wanting to put like me doing my training, doing my camp before and after, and you could physically see that it is fucking ridiculous. I'm putting on 10, 15 pounds. It is excruciatingly hard and painful on a person's body to put that weight on.
I can definitely see that.
It is painful, especially with me fighting for as long as I have, and the injuries that I have from fighting. It is very, very painful on your joints, on your legs. Like I have knee reconstructive surgeries. That is extremely painful on your body.
Well, and then to that point, you're talking about doing it with 10 to 15. Cyborg's talking about potentially dropping 40 to 45 down.
And that's even worse. Like that's even worse for yourself.
And like, I know that they get, the 24 hour, 36 hours, whatever the fuck it is, from the Friday morning weigh-ins till Saturday night fights to rehydrate. But there's no fucking way I can see without IVs, because they're not allowed IVs anymore. There's no way that I can see putting back enough water in your body to have your true ability at that weight when you're cutting that much, that hard. Granted, she's made a career out of giving it a hell of a go, but that's gotta be insanely fucking hard on your body to do that extreme of a chop.
I mean, weight cuts in general are just hard. Whether it's like weight cuts in general are just hard. Weight gains, weight cuts. Like I've never experienced how to make the weight cut. I've never experienced that so far in my career of being a fighter. I've never had to experience it, and I really don't want to. But it has to be more draining, more exhausting, more physical toll on your body to cut that weight and to still be in the gym training hours a day. It has to be so much more exhausting, so much more draining on your soul, not just your body. Your soul is being stuffed with life.
I can definitely see that. And we did just get an update here. Mr. Golf Vapes has sent me some more, the rest of his predictions. Run back on those real quick, and then we'll jump to the main event here. So he, as well as us, has Uriah Hall. He took Ryan Hall over BJ Penn, like we talked about. He has actually got Megan Anderson over Kat Zingano. He has got Walt Harris over Andrei Arlovski as well. So he has got Tension over Floyd Mayweather with 6 cry-laughing emojis after it. Literally 6 cry-laughing emojis after it. I fucking love that. And then for the main card where we're at so far, he has got Volkanovski over Mendes. He has got Anderson over Latifi. He has got Chiesa over Condit, though, which I find extremely interesting. And I really wish he was here to give us a little feedback on that one. Because TJ, as well as knows the fight world, trained with Gracie's himself, has pictures to prove it. So TJ knows the fight world as well. Yeah, TJ trained with Royce Gracie. Excuse me. Yeah. TJ has been in the shit. TJ knows what the fuck he's doing. He's not an average casual like some of us. Yeah, he knows his shit. That's one of the reasons that I love having him on here with me, is because he's got an inside perspective just like you do from being in that world. So for him to take Chiesa over Condit, that really gets my fucking wheels turning here and wondering how he came across that one.
My mind just got like screw blown. My mind just got fucking raped.
So, and then he has got, and here we go again. He has got Amanda over Cyborg. So let me see, because he also sent me some text here. So he says, as far as Nunes Cyborg goes, it could go either way. For Amanda to win, she's going to need to have her jab in supreme form, as well as having great head movement, which absolutely makes sense. If Cyborg catches her, it's really going to put her chin to the test, and it could be a night ender because her right hand is deadly. Fucking facts.
Yeah.
Amanda better stay on her bike if she wants to win it, and he has her winning it.
I mean, with that fight, I think that this is really going to be Cyborg's biggest challenge. She hasn't had a real big challenge in her weight class.
I agree.
She doesn't have a big challenge. I think that this is going to be a challenge, but I mean, it's going to be one for the record book.
I agree, and I agree with you 100%. I think this is to date Cyborg's biggest fucking challenge, hands down. Unlike our friend TJ here, I think she is up to the task, though. I think she's going to take it. I think she keeps her belt. I think it's Ann Still in this one. We're going to have to see how that one plays out, though. So that brings us to the main event of the evening. The last fight of 2018 for the UFC. January begins an entire new era of UFC, the UFC on ESPN era. The era of Fox has gone now. They gave us some great fights, and I, as a fan, are appreciative of that. But we are closing the night and the year out with arguably the most anticipated rematch in UFC history. The rematch of arguably the closest and the greatest title fight, at least at 205, the UFC has ever fucking seen. And now, because this fight has me personally so fucking pumped to see it, I have rewatched it because it's been the free fight for UFC 32 on YouTube for about a week and a half, 2 weeks now. I have watched that fight over at least a dozen times in the last week. And I even watched it twice with my wife last night because me talking about it had her so fucking hyped she had to watch it and get to appreciate it because I was so fucking pumped just talking about details. She would just go, just turn the fucking fight on. I have to see it.
Let's just
turn
watch
the fight
it.
on. Yeah. So I got her so fucking hyped about it from me talking about it that she actually watched it with me. This is John Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson 2. This is the rematch of all rematches. This is John Jones' return from his post-USADA suspension for the 205 belt. Now, I will say before we start talking about the fight itself, there has also been some controversy around this itself being the title fight in the last 24 hours because of the never-ending hatred between these two. DC, aside from his entire week of shit talking against John Jones, actually came out and had a press event yesterday where he, and I quote, relinquished the 205 belt before it became stripped from him for the fight tonight because he didn't want John Jones to have any edge to say anything about anyone stripping him of the belt that he earned. I am in the camp in that situation of firmly believing without a slight hesitation or fraction of doubt that DC, while he may have had that belt, never fucking earned it. He held John's belt while John was suspended. Point blank, period. Close the fucking book.
You can't call yourself a champ until you fought the champ.
Exactly. You become the champ by beating the champ. And DC never did that. He was literally given the belt back when John got suspended.
You can't call yourself a legend until you beat the legends, man.
Exactly. So, that bullshit aside, Steamloader required to move. John Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson 2 for the 205 belt 5 years after the original fight. This has the potential to be either the most quick fight in 2018 or the greatest long fight of 2018, because with these two both having trained and evolved so much since the first fight, realistically, at least in my opinion, there is a chance 100% that John Jones comes out and Conor McGregor's Gustafsson and just fucking lays him. Just ends it. 13-second, one shot, done.
I mean,
and new. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. What I'm saying is, having followed John Jones and watched him box in his garage for hours at a time on Instagram over the last year and a half, and watching Gustafsson's training videos with him and Latifi back in Sweden, and his improvement in his striking, in his wrestling, in his overall game, in the shape that he's kept himself in, it's going to be a hell of a fight no matter which way it comes down. But I think with all the work that John has put into his hands, and that being one of the main things that he lacked in the first fight, his hands were not on the level of Gustafsson's at all. I think John has the potential here to just one-shot Gustafsson. I don't think that's how it's going to go down, but that potential is there, and it cannot be ignored if you're in that Gustafsson camp. The big thing...
There is definitely the potential. But he hasn't been in a fight. He hasn't been able to fight since the ban.
Well, but that's the thing, though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
John Jones has fought more recently than Gustafsson has because Gustafsson has been out with an injury. John Jones fought more recently than Gustafsson. Gustafsson has been out longer than Jones has on this suspension.
Yes.
So the factor of ring rust is real on both fucking sides of this here.
God.
The thing that I think, at least, is going to make the biggest deciding factor, aside from John's hand improvement, is going to be John's wrestling improvement. Because John has been doing some serious powerlifting. He has gotten himself into fucking fantastic shape. But he has made a point to put serious devotion and work into his boxing and into his wrestling. And those were the areas that Gustafsson fucking dominated him in the first fight. He outboxed the shit out of him, and he's the only person to have taken 9 takedown attempts from Jon Jones and given up 0. He was also the first person to ever take Jon Jones down in the first fight. Those 2 factors alone coming into here, I think there is 0 chance that Jon has not put extreme extra pressure onto making sure his hands are fucking solid and to make sure his defense for takedowns and his offense for wrestling takedowns are on fucking point. So, in my opinion, Jon has done his homework enough and his team has done their homework enough. I think they have stepped up. I think they have patched up the holes in their game that Gustafsson exposed in the first fight and that he took advantage of. I see this going Jon Jones, 3rd round KO/TKO. Gustafsson is no slouch, but I just don't feel that he's got what it takes to get Jones. Not this time, not last time. I think he just doesn't match up well enough. I think this is Jones and New, and then he goes after DC for that fucking heavyweight belt.
I mean, I'm gonna agree with you. Not because Gustafsson doesn't have it, but Jon Jones has so much to prove. He has so much to prove that regardless of what happened last year, he can still pass USADA, pass everything, but still be a world-class fighter.
I agree. And I know I'm going to catch shit for it. I know I do every time I fucking say it, and I give 0 fucks. But I am 100% unflinchingly in the camp that Jon Jones is the fucking P for P GOAT. He is the single greatest pound-for-pound fighter. The only close athlete that I would put an asterisk that it could be considered a tie for is Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, because that man in his division and in 135 both was a fucking world ender. And the fact that he's over in 1 now is a whole weird situation. But the only other person that is even in that conversation, in my opinion, as the true pound-for-pound greatest fighter is Jon Bones Jones. And I think tonight he has got all the motivation he needs in the proving of his innocence, in the reclaiming of his belt, in just the showing that he is not done yet. I think he has everything he needs to take this, and I think he takes his fucking belt back tonight.
I'm gonna agree with that. All right, now I have a question for you that I've been thinking about for the last several days now.
I've
been thinking about this for the last several days. What's the biggest thing that you think is going to happen in the UFC next year?
In 2019?
Saying about that. Yes.
So
I have a very controversial topic on my brain.
I think it's going to be one of 2 things. I think, and I'll preface it with this, I don't want it to go this way, but I think if it goes this way, this would be the thing, if not one of 2 things that could be the biggest thing next year. The first one being Henry Cejudo some fucking how beating TJ Dillashaw at 125 and saving the division. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Cejudo has a fucking prayer in that fight against TJ. But that being said, if somehow he manages to beat TJ and beat him dominantly, establishingly, I think that could be one of the biggest things in 2019. The other thing that I think could be the biggest 2019 event, depending on how this plays out, because there's been speculations about it already so far, is if it comes to fruition, they're talking potentially about building a card around Khabib versus Tony Ferguson and Conor McGregor versus Cowboy Cerrone as an elimination match.
Shit.
If that happens, there's not a fucking thing they could put together in my eyes that could make a bigger fight. Not DC Jones 3 at heavyweight. That's the biggest card of 2019 if it goes through that way.
Okay, oh God, you really say murderer. But okay. So here's I've been thinking about for the last several months. There's a reason why I don't like USADA. Because when and what are they going to do? Because they haven't come down to a decision with the Nevada Athletic Commission with Vanderlei Silva.
I'm pretty sure they already suspended him and he's coming back because he's already scheduled to headline Anderson. It's been confirmed. It's official. It's official. He's fighting Israel Adesanya.
Next year?
Yeah. Shit, and now I don't remember what card they put it on. No, they're headlining. They're headlining a card.
Because I have been waiting to get an official, like, this is the suspension amount, this is that, and this is when he's eligible to come back.
Yeah, no, if I remember, and I could be wrong about this, but if I remember correctly, what they did was it was another one of those situations where they gave him a certain amount of time retroactive in the suspension, and then put forward the date that he would be eligible, excuse me, put forward the date that he would be eligible to fight again, and the UFC took that and worked it into the schedule, and he has officially been confirmed. He and Israel Adesanya are going to headline a card, and that unto itself is going to be a fucking spectacular fight, because that's going to go one of two ways. Either Anderson Silva is going to show us that he is still fucking got it, but I don't think that's going to go. I think what's actually going to happen is Anderson Silva is going to get Anderson Silva'd by Israel Adesanya. The fucking style bender is the fucking truth, man. I am 100% on that fucking train, and I have been since they first brought him into the UFC. That dude is as legit can be. That fight is going to be fucking epic. That fight is going to be spectacular in 2019.
Yeah, there's a reason I don't like USADA.
And see, I understand that argument both ways. My thoughts on it are, I understand and I can appreciate the UFC bringing USADA in to keep the fight game clean. My problem with them bringing USADA in is when they did it, excuse me,
nobody knew anything.
Well, aside from that, they took away the ability for fighters to rehydrate using IVs.
Yeah.
If you're bringing in a company who specializes in performance-enhancing supplement detection for athletic cleanliness and morality, and you're still going to allow fighters to cut weight, how are you not going to allow them to hydrate safely? Because some places and some organizations monitor way more closely the actual weight cut in regards to the fight than the UFC does. The UFC says if you can make weight at 10 o'clock on Friday morning, you can fight on Saturday night as long as you don't put a needle in your arm between Friday and Saturday. There are athletic commissions that monitor your fucking water levels. They monitor your muscle density. They monitor your bone density. They monitor your weight, actual body fat percentage throughout the entire camp, throughout the weight cut and up into the fight. And you can only cut a certain percentage because that's the safe threshold for your body's adjustment period to safely be able to rehydrate and fight. So my thoughts on it are, if you're going to have something like USADA where the guys are literally woken up in the middle of the night to piss in a cup and get blood drawn from their fucking arm, then you damn well should let them use an IV to rehydrate before the fight so that everyone's fighting at their optimum health level.
Yeah, I fight for a company that is owned by Dana White. I fight for a company out of Columbus, Ohio, that's owned, operated by Dana White. And we have USADA.
Yep.
I don't like USADA.
I can definitely see.
The very last fight that I had a month and a half ago, I got drug tested at my job.
I can definitely see that being one of those things that USADA just interferes with your fucking life to keep you on track for.
They drug tested me at my job. Hey, is Randall here? yeah, he's in the kitchen right now. Oh, well, we need to see him. Who are you? Don't worry about that. He'll know who we are.
Oh, that's fucking crazy. Oh,
And
here we go.
I'm a manager. I'm a manager in a business, and they just come in. So you know who you are? Yep, I know you are. Not gonna ask. I'm not gonna ask you credentials, ID, anything like that.
Right.
I know
Yeah.
you're not.
At that point,
I know you're not gonna do it. I know you're not entitled to do it. Let's just go in the bathroom. Let's get this over with.
Yep. Here we
Let's
go,
get it
and
over with, man.
we've got our update, our final prediction of the evening from Mr. Golf T Vapes, TJ himself. He has got John Jones taking his belt back by third round stoppage. It's going to be an interesting card tonight, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be an interesting card. That is all the events we have got to talk about for this evening. So I'm going to refrain from holding you people hostage any longer. We are going to wrap this up. RJ, thank you very much for coming on and shooting the shit and giving me your input on the events that we have got talking about here. Tell the people where they can find you if they want to come talk some more shit after the show.
Instagram is the best. That would be RJ__vape on Instagram. Just shoot me a DM about anything. I like talking to people. I like talking about weird shit, especially MMA.
And I will also drop your handle down there in the description so people can click right on it. Thank you again very much for coming along, brother. It was a fucking great time, and I appreciate your time.
Dude, anytime, man. Anytime.
We will
gives me something to do.
We will definitely try and put together more of these and see if we can get you on some more so we can get your feedback in here with the group. That being said, I thank you most of all, fans and listeners, for coming along this crazy little journey with us. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration and your support. I appreciate the fans who support this most of all. We're going to call that all for the UFC 232 breakdown show here on the I'm No Joe podcast. So remember, you can root for anything. Don't let ignorance stop you. I am the meter. This has been I'm No Joe. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great night.